Hi, and welcome to Writing Essentials with Mrs. Benson. Thank you for joining me today. We are moving along with our video series on the varying elements of a narrative. And today I would like to talk to you about your plot structure and about transitions. Both of these heavily affect the pacing of your narrative. So, for pacing and plot structure, what you have in front of you is sort of your basic plot structure diagram. And these are kind of considered the essential elements of any fully developed narrative. We have the orientation, or some people call it the exposition, the beginning. This is when we're introduced to characters and setting. Then we have the rising action. And usually, I put a circle right here, there's some sort of catalyst for that rising action. Often that can be characterized as a conflict. Something happens to spark some movement in the plot line. So that's the rising action, moving up the hill. We're building tension, conflicts are being developed and certainly not resolved. And then the climax is sort of the moment where the tension point hits its peak, and some kind of a solution seems to be on the horizon. And then we have the falling action going towards that solution or resolution. And then the ending of your narrative is the resolution. Keep in mind that solution or resolution doesn't always mean that it's happy. This just means that whatever conflict is dissolved. And sometimes conflicts are dissolved in unhappy ways, right? So it doesn't have to mean that you have a happy ending or a good resolution. It's just a resolution, a closing out of the conflict. So this is sort of just the basics of what you want to include in a story. Now, what we will find as we are reading fiction and watching movies or TV shows is that they don't always go in this order. And so that's just something I wanted to talk about with you, is that first, you want to make sure that you're including sort of the basics and the bare bones of these essential elements of plot structure when you're composing your narrative. But then you should also feel a level of comfort in changing it up a little bit. So consider a twist with your delivery of that plot structure. And this diagram here, in kind of a funky way, but hopefully you get the idea, allows you to utilize what we call flashback or flash forward in order to change up the pacing of your plot structure. So rather than just going in a very linear fashion in chronological time, this happened first, this happened second, this happened third, consider, would it be more interesting or dynamic for my reader for me to start in a different place than the exposition, to start in a different place than the beginning? So maybe I want to start in the thick of things, right in the middle of the climax. So that might be an exciting point. Maybe I want to start at the end and have everything be a reflection back. So you really can decide to manipulate your plot structure a little bit. My encouragement to you, if you decide to make a choice like that, is just to make sure that you're clear, that your reader can follow you. So feel free to start in the middle of the action, but then you need to give some very clear markers or clear signals so that your reader can then follow you as you go back to the beginning, or you go back to a different place and then you return to where you started. So just make sure you're using clear markers. And my best recommendation for you when you're thinking about those signals and those markers is to consider what are called transitions. So, transitional expressions are just really helpful for tying the elements of your story together and showing relationships. And by using transitions, you can help your reader more easily navigate if you're if you're going in a linear fashion, or even if you're not going in a linear fashion as you deliver your story. So these words like meanwhile, afterward, before, as soon as, right after, while we waited, those kind of time markers really help the reader understand, oh, okay, this was happening over here, or this happened before, and now I'm going to something that's forward progressing. So I really encourage you, you can certainly take a snapshot of this list from this film, but you can also just Google narrative transitions, transition words, transition phrases. A lot of the time you'll see them come in the forms of prepositional phrases or adverbs, or even adverb clauses. And this is a great thing as well because it will allow you to add some sentence dynamics, rather than always having a straight subject verb kind of pattern. I left, I bought, I ran, and we can kind of get into that habit, particularly in narrative writing, if I'm telling a story from my experience. So putting some of these prepositional phrases in front to begin with, in the future, before long, or by putting adverbs, eventually, suddenly, gradually, those will change up your sentence dynamics a little bit and give you a bit more variety, and make the reading a little bit more interesting. Just to close, to add to that, you do not have to put these at the front. A lot of these transitional expressions would work in the middle of a sentence or in the end of a sentence. Okay, so we began to get tired after a while, or I could put it at the front of the sentence. After a while, we began to get tired, or we began to tire. So feel free to think about where you might want to sprinkle these in. I really encourage you to think about the phases or different plot elements that you're bringing forth and where they are and how you can help your reader along, and just have a better experience navigating your story. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Have a good one.